We are now streaming. Hello, and welcome back to the Rawkode Academy. I am your host, David Flanagan, although you'll probably know me as Rawkode from across the internet. Today, we have another wonderful episode of Rawkode Live where we take a look at open source software that helps to make your life easier and simpler in this cloud native landscape. Today, we are taking a look at a project called Helm Dashboard from a team at Komodor, and to guide us through our journey today, I am joined by its creator and maintainer, Andre. Hello, welcome. How are you?
Hello, hi everyone. Super happy to join. My name is Andre, and you probably know me by other open source projects that I've been doing in the past. And these days, I'm joining Komodor as a company and leading open source development in Komodor. Couple of words about Komodor. What's the company? Komodor is producing the solution for easier troubleshooting and management in Kubernetes and everything that relates to Kubernetes. This is why the project that we're looking on today is also related to Kubernetes and Helm. And the project is Helm Dashboard. Should I start the presentation?
Well, I'm curious. You said we may know you from previous open source projects. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background there? What have you worked on?
Um, sure. I My open source journey was starting from the load testing area where I was doing tooling around load testing, and uh, then I open sourced a couple of interesting tools to do the either high scale load testing or lower scale, but with more details about around the visualization and analysis of the load testing results. And so people inside the load testing area know me. At least everyone knows the tools that I did, not necessarily my person. Doesn't matter. And from there, I found that it's actually exciting to start the projects and do open source in many different areas. For example, if you'll find my YouTube, you'll find there the robots built from Lego and the software library that is behind that, and that's the open source written in Python, or some crazy experiments with chess and neural networks, and it's also open source. And some people who find it just have fun because I was writing the journaling all of my experience, which I cannot say is fully breakthrough, but just the fun of the process of making it and sharing it with people. This is what excites me, and this is what led me to here, basically.
All right, so I'm curious then. You said Lego robots, you said chess and machine learning, you've got a bit of Python going on there. How did you end up in this Kubernetes landscape?
How can you avoid Kubernetes these days? I don't know. Regardless of where you started in your past, you will end up with Kubernetes today because it's everywhere. This is the huge wave of transformation, or at least adoption, that comes in technology, in infrastructure. So anything that relates to Kubernetes will be there for long these days. And I actually, several years I was looking at Kubernetes thinking, how will I apply myself to Kubernetes? What will I do in Kubernetes? And thanks to Komodor, I'm now able to actually meaningfully contribute to the ecosystem of Kubernetes. So
Awesome.
I'm all excited about Kubernetes. I like it.
Awesome. That's wonderful to hear. So the announcement was this week. Commodore said, in fact, was it yesterday? It's been such a weird week for me. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Commodore started tweeting about Helm Dashboard and this new project, and you're going to guide us through it today. So without further ado, I'll say, why don't you share your screen? We've got a few slides, and then we'll take a look at the project hands on.
All right, let me start. So I prepared a couple of slides to guide us through the theoretical part of it, and then let's do some hands-on demo. Let's do, where's that button? It's there. Helm Dashboard by Komodor. The name supposed to be super obvious, nothing fancy. It's exactly that. It's the dashboard that shows Helm situation in your cluster. My plan for today is to introduce you to Helm if you don't know what it is, explain the problem, why we started doing that, explain how we solved that problem, do the live demo. If there are any questions, let's do answers. Let's do answer those questions, hopefully with also live demo. This is what I like and prefer to do, to answer the questions by demonstrating the answers, not theorizing on it. First thing is, let's remember what is this thing Komodor, Helm. And Helm is actually a cool thing, and it's a package manager. Usually people describe Helm as reverse. They say that it's templating first. No. Its first role, I would say the most important role, is package management for Kubernetes. It's actually a bit of shame on Kubernetes to not have an out-of-the-box package manager, because in any infrastructure level technology that appears in the recent days, you see that the package manager inevitably emerges from there. And for example, Golang ecosystem, which I like, they started from having their own package manager and providing it. And other ecosystems like PHP, for example, they didn't have any package manager for a while, and then the third-party package manager appeared. The same thing happens to Komodor, to Kubernetes, I'm sorry. That the third-party package manager had to emerge because the ecosystem itself didn't produce a package manager, didn't introduce a standard. Maybe a good thing, in my opinion. There should be more centralized approach to package applications in Kubernetes, and you should not need a third party for that. That's the history, and Helm appeared and became, I would say, de facto standard of parameterizing and packaging the applications. The how is it called? Kubernetes templating the default.
Customize?
Customize, yes. It appeared later, but it appeared too late because Helm has already conquered the market, the mind share of the market, and became the most popular way to deploy the applications. If we look into data, for example, among Komodor users, we see that 100% of our users use Helm. They maybe use it in conjunction with other technologies also, but they still use Helm. And second role of Helm is a templating language. It's a way to deduplicate and parameterize your complicated Kubernetes manifests into something that is more manageable, because it's great to have these microservice, all loosely coupled things, but you have to manage them still as a holistic application. And today, Helm provides over 10,000 packages, thousands of repositories, and there is a single command line tool to operate it. In my opinion, it's good and bad because it's too many different things packaged into that CLI tool. But that's the standard. I cannot question the fact that Helm is the most popular way to package applications. And from that popularity, we have the whole ecosystem emerging from the community with plugins to Helm, with applications with their own vision of how you manage Helm or how you alter the way Helm applications are deployed. And it always starts great with the technology, and problems come and troubles come when you start really adopting and using it. The problems that are happening with Helm, in my opinion, is they all originate from simple concepts that are used in really extensive fashion. In Helm, you have really small amount of concepts. A release, a revision of that release, manifests, values, everything is quite simple. But when you start using it on a daily fashion with multiple applications, many different variants, and you add namespaces on top of it, multi-cluster aspect on top of it, suddenly you feel that this CLI is cumbersome for you because it's hard to operate with these simple concepts multiplied by number of your applications, clusters, and namespaces. And when I speak about this problem, I tend to divide it into two areas. One area is that because of the Helm popularity, there are a lot of new users coming into this ecosystem, and they need some more visual and simplified ways to learn. And if you only give them CLI, it becomes really hard for new and less experienced people to learn. I know from my past, from these open source applications, when in the load testing area, that the magic of popularity comes when you respect the new users and you give them visual, easy, really easy to digest ways to learn your tool and your concepts. The experienced users, on the other end, they also want some visual presentation of the complicated things that they do, because this is their daily efficiency. They already know all of these commands. It's just so long to run these commands, and I will demonstrate on the further slide what it actually means to perform quite simple operation and get answer to simple question with Helm CLI. And some people start immediately thinking, how does this idea of visualizing Helm plays in conjunction with automation and CI/CD? And I should say this is out of the scope for the project. The CI/CD and automation is already okay with CLI. It's meant to be used through CLI. It's for machines. It's great for machines to operate with CLI. So we are not aiming to interfere with GitOps flow and CI/CD setups with this project. But we all know that when things are wrong and you need to do investigation through CLI. This is the when the amount of your CLI calls snowballs. And it's okay if your CLI results in a couple of lines of response. But in case of Helm, you have long manifests of Kubernetes objects produced as a result of these commands. Huge JSONs, YAMLs, lists of revisions and charts, and all of that is really hard to manage, especially if you are under the stress of a failure. And this is where we want to help to experienced users also. This is your looking glass at your Helm that's supposed to speed up your operations in case of troubles or just investigation. A funny story, when I started this project, and the first thing I did when I made it, just the view only capabilities of it, and we looked at our own staging cluster, and we actually found a couple of Helm charts that nobody knew that it's there. And we started asking, who knows what's that thing? Its age is 2 years and nobody touched it since then. It's actually a dead thing. How could we know it without actually when it's exposed into our face through the UI? It's even easy to ignore it when you're in CLI. So that's the story, that's the motivation and the problem that we're trying to solve, to make things that you have with regard to your Helm visual for you, so it's easier to operate and easier to learn and get introduced into this ecosystem. This is that example. So I even omitted a couple of commands to locate the Helm chart inside your chart, but now let's say we found that we have this Loki chart in the Loki namespace. And then to understand what has changed, if you experiencing some problem and you want to understand what has changed in the recent releases of it, this is what you're left with. You need to generate these YAMLs, you need to store them into files, then you need to call diff on those files. And if you generated the wrong revision, you want to roll back your view to one more revision, you need to repeat all of that. And finally, at the step number 8, you're doing rollback. And you see how many commands are there, and I'm not showing you the outputs of the commands, and usually those outputs are lengthy. So this is what we're trying to solve. We want to give the visual way to consume all of that information that Helm presents to us, and have slightly easier way to manage your Helm cluster, your installations of Helm packaged applications in the cluster. And this is our approach to it. We created this project which gives you the web UI, because the web is the common way to provide UIs today. And through that web UI, you can see what is there, what are the Helm charts installed, what's their state, what's their history, all of the aspects of those Helm charts. You can have the change intelligence. This is the most important thing, and this is the feature that Komodor puts into all of its products, into main platform of managing Kubernetes. What has changed? It's easy to get the answer, and I will demonstrate today how easy is that with Helm Dashboard to get the answer to the question of what has changed when certain feature, the flag or value was introduced. And also you can do some mainstream operations. You can roll back the revision, you can uninstall chart, you can install it, and you can reconfigure it, and all of that with preview. And one advanced feature that we wanted to include on top of the standard Helm functionality is the scanner integrations, because this is the thing that became de facto standard in the industry to scan your manifests and Kubernetes objects for the problems. So this is something that is a standard for today's operations with Kubernetes, and we integrated a couple of code scanning or manifest scanning tools into Helm Dashboard, but that's an optional integration that you don't have to use if you don't want to. And of course, it's all open source, free. There's no nothing that I'm showing today is closed source or anything like that. I'm the open source guy. I'm only doing open source things. There are some existing solutions. Let's be fair. And today I had a really funny morning because I woke up and then on LinkedIn, in one of the posts of announcing this project, one of the guys asked me the question, how does this compare to K9S support of Helm? And I was like, does K9S have Helm support? Did I miss something? And I went Googling because I completely missed that thing. And I went Googling and I Googled this and I Googled that, K9S Helm, Helm K9S. I found nothing. And I was curious. I went to the K9S website and I read through their docs. I searched through their docs. No mention of Helm. Then I opened K9S and I typed Helm and it said there is Helm. And I like, wow, what's there? And it only shows the list of installed charts and the notes, the description of the chart, which is probably the least important information in the Helm chart. So it's there. The support for the Helm in K9S is there. It's just well hidden. And this is what I responded to the guy who asked the question, because this feature is extremely well hidden. That's how I react on that at first. And well, it's hard to compare K9S because the functionality there is really, really small. There are applications like Lens, Kubernetes Dashboard, Kube apps, but their problem is that the Helm is not a central thing. Usually it's something on the side. It's heavily bloated with a lot of features, and in my opinion it's really hard. If we look at that problem of helping new users to get into Helm, that's not the way for new users to get introduced into ecosystem. It's too heavy. A lot of those require much heavier processes of installing, while I would say that the simple user and even experienced user, they only need some sugar that you put on top of that Helm CLI, which is great. And here you go. And if it's a popular question, how does this relate to Argo CD? Well, the situation with Argo CD is actually much more tricky because Argo CD doesn't use Helm when they deploy Helm applications. They only generate manifests, but then the actual management is not done by Helm, which leads to losing some really crucial information about the history of the chart. It's hard in Argo CD to find the diff between a couple of revisions of the past. If you have that question, what led to a trouble? Argo CD is more about GitOps, and it assumes that you will have your Git history to answer those questions. But between the chart and your Kubernetes, there is this step of generating manifests. So in my opinion, that's not always sufficient. And applications like Rancher and CodeFresh, they attach the Helm functionality to some bigger beast, requiring you to sign in, sign up, and have this huge beast and find in small corner of it your Helm functionality. In my opinion, again, it's defocusing if you're just starting with Helm. So this is the key in my vision of the Helm Dashboard project. The key is focus. Let's have a dashboard that is a UI over Helm. It's focused on Helm. It's Helm native, if you will, and it's easier for you to grasp the idea of what's going on there. So what we have at this stage of the project, and it's already there, we have the Golang application with web frontend. It all runs locally on your computer. It uses your Kubernetes context. It doesn't do any fishy things with secrets and access and signups, nothing like that. If you have Helm working locally, kubectl working locally, that thing will also work using that same communication and configuration. It will recognize and respect your kubectl config files, so you will have your clusters listed there. all of the functionality that I mentioned earlier, and I will show later, it's there. It's easy to install. It's made in a form, it's shipped in the form of Helm plugin. So you install it and then you run Helm Dashboard, and it does the thing. It opens you a browser tab with the application, and you can start right away. I will demo that. We have GitHub project, we have GitHub issues and Slack chat as a support channels. So you can either live chat if you prefer that, or use GitHub issues if you prefer that. I'm there and ready and happy to answer some of your questions. We already have some questions and even pull requests submitted by people, which is quite exciting. And we have energy and knowledge to improve it further. I have my roadmap. I partially expressed it into GitHub issues. If you want to contribute something, there are a couple of simple issues to fix and maybe bigger features to contribute. I'm open for that collaboration with anyone who's interested in pushing this cool initiative forward. And with that, I think let's dive into live demo area where we will see the things live and going. David, any notes so far? Should I proceed, or do we need to make a pause? Maybe I spoke too much.
No, I think you've described the project very well. I love all the context. I love all the history. I love that you've really nailed down what the problem statement is and how you think you can solve that and help people. So, like, I think that was a really good overview, and I'm looking forward now to actually seeing you use the product. So let's take a look at it.
Okay, great. So let me shut down the previous thing. Let's say I'm starting my next session of Helm Dashboard. This is my favorite part of all of these webinars and podcasts is the live demonstration. So the way to invoke it, it assumes that I've already installed that. There is installation instructions on the Helm Dashboard project page. There is this command you run to install it. And Helm Dashboard is the command you run to invoke it, and it pops up automatically the browser tab with your list of installed charts. On the left, you can see my clusters. I can switch to GKE, and I can switch. This is my local default cluster of Kubernetes kind.
So is that the context that you have in your kubeconfig?
Yes, exactly. This is my kubeconfig context. So this is my JKE with the charts installed there, and this is my local kind cluster with the chart installed there. So let's see, what's the first thing we will do? Let's uninstall the chart. Hey. Or no? No.
Yeah, let's delete stuff. Okay. Come on. Let's be brave.
We'll delete it. I think that we should go through the flow of the view capabilities first, because if I will delete the chart that has history, what will we view? So let's view. Let's see. I have prepared the history for metrics server. So I clicked on it, and you can already see how much information is in front of you, even here, without invoking too many commands. You get all of that information. So all of this meta information about the chart, it's okay, but this is the valuable part on the left, for example. You can see the history of your chart, and you can immediately see that, for example, this was the downgrade, and that lasted for 3 hours. Then after 3 hours, I upgraded it, and it was lasting for 56 minutes. And this is the perspective that we're trying to put into Helm Dashboard, that you most of the time, so you don't care the absolute date of when the thing happened. It was on 26th or 27th. It's more important for how long did it last. If it lived short life, then probably something was going on there. Somebody was reconfiguring it. If it was lasting for weeks or days at least, then probably it was a stable state, and it's a candidate to roll back to if you have problems. And you can see that here, for example, I rolled back, and you can see the icon designating that it was a rollback action. So you already start getting some more information than you get with bare Helm command line that you run. Don't get me wrong, this thing runs Helm under the hood. It just mixes it with a lot of sugar and presents you a nice birthday cake as opposed to the sugar and flour separated. So this is the idea. And from here we can do either actions or we can view different aspects of this Helm chart that is installed. Let's view the aspects of the Helm chart. First, we can see the current resources in the Kubernetes cluster. We can even describe those resources and see the described view of those resources to spot, I don't know, events or problems that are running right now. And this is the first view. The second view is the manifest. This is where you start digging into problems, and your problems usually originate from manifests. But in manifests, a lot of times you don't want to just look through the manifest YAML. It's quite tedious unless you know what you're looking for. You rather would look for the diff.
Nice.
And for example, you may see that I was introducing the wrong command line and then rolling back. What was the meaning of this rollback? I rolled back to the working state from intentionally non-working state. And if I just click here, you can see what was that upgrade of chart revision. It resulted in some annotations, and it should also be resulting in some image upgrades. And you can see this was my malicious option introduced here. So this is cost you only one click. What was this? What was that? Why this didn't upgrade or didn't downgrade? This is because I reconfigured it. And this one is obviously the installation, the first step. When I was reconfiguring it, was it originating from anything else or just my actions? Then we can switch into values and see what was my, let's switch user-defined values only. This is what I did. This is exactly my change. And it becomes important if you collaborate and multiple people do multiple changes to the cluster. This is how you figure it out in case you have questions to what was the story of evolution of this chart. So this was the reconfiguration that broke it. This was the rollback that fixed it back. And all of that with just mouse clicks. Super easy. The nodes, as I said, is probably the least interesting part of every chart. Nevertheless, it's there. So this is the viewing capabilities. And this is the place where we'll probably look at the integration with scanners, the code scanners. There's this button. You can describe the resource and you can also scan. So if you have locally installed Chekhov and Trivi, or one of these problem scanner, you can click on the button and it would trigger the check of that Kubernetes resource for you. So you can review what Chekhov thinks about this specific chart and Kubernetes resource. And you can also know what Trivi thinks about it. And they look at it from different perspectives. The reports are huge and you can review that, but this is your access to this normal today question of, do I have any troubles? Do I have any high priority troubles here? Criticals, do I have criticals? No, there's only one critical. Well, probably criticals and highs are to be fixed. Maybe I should upgrade something or at least keep an eye on it. Let's go further. How do we reconfigure? There's this button that you can just click and it would reconfigure the application. For example, there is this already existing value. I can, by the way, downgrade the app from this screen. If I really want, I can go back to the previous version, or I can upgrade from the same view if I want, if there is a newer version. And what's important, this is where we assemble together different sources of the information about the chart, and we allow you to manage the upgrade, downgrade, or modification process of the chart with everything you need at your hand. For example, if you don't know what is the parameter that would scale this thing up, you can look it up here. This is your documentation from the chart. What's the name of my replicas? Okay, this is the name. I can just put it here and say replicas 5. Okay, let's not kill my machine. Let's say replicas 2. And down below, you will see how my manifest changes. It will actually change one parameter here. What if I downgrade to very old version? You can actually review that there will be some more changes than just image versions changing if you do downgrade. And everything happens, you see this diff before you do it. And this is super important because the vicious cycle of doing a mistake and reviewing resulting failure and doing a mistake in configuration again, and all of that, it's not good. But Helm offers you quite painful CLI-based process of reviewing these changes. So we're just taking all of that experience and assembling it into a nice UI that allows you to review before you install. And it also allows you to scan for problems before you install. If I click this button, then this whole manifest will be run through Chekhov scan, and you will see what Chekhov offers you as list of the problems to fix in your manifest that you are about to deploy into your Kubernetes cluster. If you want to do something about it, do something about it. If you just review and accept, you just push the button confirm, and it would apply to your cluster. It would apply to your cluster the changes, and you can review. This is our new revision, and you can see that the changes that you were seeing in preview, those were actually applying here. And I guess it starts the second replica right now for us. The values, did we change anything? Yes, we set 2 replicas now. All of that is quite expected. And note, now when we have downgraded, it looks into repository and says, don't you want to upgrade? You are actually not at the latest. And there is even a nice button to check for a new version. By the way, there's a trick. I know that today Komodor has released a new version of its agent. So now I can demonstrate you how the check for new revision, for new version works, because it only works once when it finds the new version. I will show you that. So what else can we do? We can roll it back to the previous revision, or we can select the revision and roll it back to something that we considered great. No, this wasn't great, and I think this one will be all right. Let's do a rollback. When you do the rollback, it tells you what will be changed again before you roll back. And let's review. Let's see what are the command line options. Command line options actually do not change, but there are some defaults that were introduced by the chart. Okay, I accept it, and I roll it back to the previous state. It has created the new revision. This is how Helm works. When you roll back, it doesn't erase anything. It just creates the new revision. It marks it as rollback. And finally, we can uninstall this chart, but I will not uninstall it because it's beautiful and it has so many revisions. I would rather uninstall something that I value slightly less, that I invested some less resources and efforts. Let's do Grafana. Grafana, you are uninstalled. Well, it's obvious. It tells you what you will erase from your cluster, and we confirm there's no Grafana anymore. And again, since it runs actual Helm behind the scenes, this is not something that can desync with Helm information. It's always in sync because it uses the actual Helm information inside it. It's not a custom database or whatever. But you usually start with no Helm charts if you are a new user, right? So what do? You have this repository section where you can actually see um, the repositories you have. You can add the repository and you can install. Let's go to Grafana and let's install Grafana. This is the repository that I have added for Grafana upfront. And I just click install. We get the familiar screen where we can change Grafana I. And we can see if we want some values. Let's do the same replicas, cluster role. This is the preview of what will happen. Let's do replicas 1, replicas 2 again. It will recalculate the diff for me and all of that. What else? We can do interesting thing. Let's do the RBAC not created. False. You see how I don't know if you live this life of Helm documentation. How do I configure it here and there? And it's so easy. It becomes even for me. Uh, I spent less time playing with these things and operating Kubernetes, but it's so pleasant for me to simplify the life and see this documentation and edit this documentation and preview the changes. So let's go ahead, let's install, and it should install me the new Grafana. And now this Grafana awaits for containers to be created and become available. We can look at it. It now scaling replica set to 2. So it knows what I asked it for. And in a couple of minutes, it will make it available. So now I can reconfigure, for example, if I'm not patient, let's get back to creating. By the way, you see, each time you update Grafana Helm chart, it regenerates admin password. This is a finding for me, which is surprising because that's not what I wanted to find. But now I know something about Grafana, one small piece. So it would add a bunch of new objects into my cluster. Let's do that. And let's see that everything works. Well, it cannot keep up with the pace of my changes, but I'm all right with that. And as always, you get these navigation through revisions, and it's so much different from what you get from CLI. I don't know. What else? What else can we do here? Let me see the scans, the resources, the manifest, the values, the change viewing, and I think it is. I promised you to show how now it thinks that I'm on latest, and this is actually one of the frequent use cases that we hear. If you read the Kubernetes Slack community, people comment. They say, "I have my Helm charts. How do I easier check for the new version to exist?" And it's quite frequent use case. This is why we added this button, check for new revision. I know there is. Now I can upgrade. So I don't need to leave this screen and leave this context to quickly check for the new version to exist. And now I can upgrade to this new version and go ahead, and it all happens without losing the context, because this is what important in these complicated environments when you have so many basic entities, but they are all interconnected and there is historical perspective. It's important to not lose the context and be able to go back and easily navigate. And this is what we provide with Helm Dashboard. Much more easy navigation through Helm concepts, while everything under the hood is 100% Helm compatible and it's true Helm inside. So we're not inventing something weird and incompatible with what we do. And basically, this is it. This is my demonstration. So if you have any questions, I'll be able to demonstrate you the answers if it's demonstrable here.
All right, awesome. Thank you. I think I don't have a lot of questions because every time something in my head popped up, you were moving right onto it right afterwards. So it's like your demo just kind of flowed really well. It introduced us to all of the features of Helm Dashboard, which I just think is a really pleasant way to manage what is otherwise a very not complicated but
It's
cumbersome
tedious.
process,
It's
right?
tedious.
It's
It's tedious. Yeah.
yeah, and I love it's that the wow feature here is that comparing the previous revisions, comparing the previous values, because those are
Yeah,
the
I love
things
it.
that ruin my day when I'm messing around with Helm charts. It's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to do that. And you know what? See that Grafana one with the regenerated password? I ran into that a few months ago, and it was infuriating. And it took me ages to work out what was actually going on. So
Yes, here you will see that suddenly the password has changed. This is your problem.
exactly. Yeah, because the chart generates it every time you run it, and it's yeah, very frustrating. And you only find that out when you go off the kind of the standard path and you're using Helm template and other things. But yeah, that could diff with previous for the manifest and the values is a very very cool resource. Something I wish that I had had in the past. So awesome feature. The one thing that you haven't answered that I'm curious of how Helm Dashboard handles it or supports it or whether it doesn't is Helm hooks. Is there any integration to show me what's going to happen with the hooks when I do a Helm deploy?
I haven't got to this aspect of Helm yet, and I will review that in the future. I saw that the Helm hooks, it's not really used too widely, and this is why I prioritize it later,
Yeah.
and I try to implement the other features that I believe the more mainstream features first. But it's for me, it's interesting to sort out even these edge cases because I want the advanced users to also benefit from this project and from this functionality, and not only the very basic users.
Awesome.
So that's definitely planned.
Another potential feature for the future, not right now because it's still very early, but charts that there's the new feature with Helm that allows people to annotate the values.yaml with schema information. And I like when I see if you can go back to the values bit.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, from like here, it would be really cool if you were able to process that schema information and make it a bit more of a rich editing experience. I think that
Do
would
you
be
do
a
you mean these comments, or it's something even more than that?
yeah. Let me see if I can find you a quick example. While I do that, if anyone in the audience has any questions or just wants to say thank you or awesome in the comments for the demo, please feel free to do that now. Will I very quickly try and find something that has it? Let's see. I came across this recently. Not got it.
Well, if it's something standardized, cool, and useful, I'll definitely, as I see, if there is the schema for this thing, then I would love to on the fly apply it to these values and warn you that you misconfiguring it even before you do that.
Yeah,
So if I
share
got
my
the idea, then it will be okay. Let me
let me
stop
share my screen
sharing.
for just a second.
Sure,
Uh,
sure. Go ahead.
so can you see?
Yeah.
So this is the Bitnami charts I think are quite good for doing the
Hmm.
schema
Hmm.
thing. But you can click on this values schema here, and it actually tells you the types that you should expect. So
Hmm.
here we got string, here we got an object, which then
Mm.
got properties and stuff. So this information is available, and if I remember correctly, it's really horrible, and it's comments within the YAML. But then I guess what else are they going to do? But if we
Hmm.
jump to, I can never remember how you get to the source code from the artifact hub. Always
It's actually in the Helm itself, it's quite inconvenient to get to the original chart of that produced some release. And I'm quite surprised that they didn't introduce any kind of unique IDs to interconnect in a reliable way. It's all name based, but it is what it is. If we all remember the history, it was a hackathon project that started Helm. So
Yeah. So in our values.yaml, we have all of these comments which have param information, which then ties up with this schema, JSON schema document that we have here. So there's a whole bunch of
okay.
information there that it would be awesome to get into Helm Dashboard and really annotate and augment what you already have with like this rich interface. I think that would be awesome. So there's my feature
That
request
sounds
already.
interesting. That sounds interesting. I should warn you. One thing that I really want to avoid is to turn this Helm dashboard, which feels lightweight and easy, into a beast that will be like really, really heavy, overflowing with these features.
Yeah.
So that's my mindset at this moment, because I see there are alternatives with a lot of functionality, super rich, but the the dark side of it is that it becomes really hard to navigate and heavy to operate, and I don't want that. I want really to speed up the process of operating for people. But if it helps, if your idea helps the process, I will review it, and if it helps the process, we'll definitely do that.
All right.
Or
Awesome.
somebody will contribute it. It's an open source for sure.
All right, awesome. Well, what I'll say is
Cool.
I love what I've seen. It delivers straight up value to people that are deploying Helm charts to the cluster. Again, that ability to see the revisions, how the templates have been modified, and how my user input the values has made and really highlight what those changes are, I think makes operating and working with Helm in a production like environment using the dashboard a fantastic experience. So I'll say kudos. Really cool project. I hope more
Thank you.
people take advantage of it. I hope people get involved and contribute, open issues, pull requests, all of the above. So it's under github.com. Is it /Komodor? Sorry, I wasn't paying
Yes, it's Commodore IO/Helm Dashboard. If you will Google Helm Dashboard Commodore, 3 words, then it will distinguish this project for you from some other parts of the Kubernetes and dashboard universe. Um, Helm Dashboard by Commodore, this is what you need to remember.
awesome. Then I'll finish up with one last question, and then I'll let you get back to your day. Like you said at the start, you have a roadmap. You've got a bunch of ideas that you kind of want to work on. Do you want to share a little bit of details about maybe what's your top priority, what's coming next, what people should expect?
Let me see. It's easy to read from the list of written things. Well, uh, there are a couple of items that are really tough, and to impress you, I can mention these tough items. For example, this Argo CD problem that so many people use Argo CD and they use Helm deployments for that, but Argo CD doesn't use Helm, so there's no meta information in secrets where Helm stores it. So Helm doesn't see these charts. The question is, can we somehow still traverse through objects in or query Kubernetes for some labels and annotations and still show these objects to people, so if they are looking for that information about Helm charts, they will get at least something, at least some view to their. By fact, it's a Helm originating thing, just Argo CD does it differently. So that's one hard item on the roadmap, to find what can we do and how can we still visualize those charts for people. Another problem that we have is we need to integrate with more artifact or manifest scanners, because I know that different people prefer different kinds of scanning for manifests. So we should provide more variants of scanning the resources. There is the advanced case of umbrella chart that we now only display the first level of umbrella chart, and there is the heavy advanced case of multiple charts dependent on each other. So we need to review that. And I think we will get to those advanced questions as soon as we fix first layer of feature requests that are already coming, people coming with these really cool and practical feature requests. And I will always prioritize users feature requests which really make sense and comes from the field and from the community over some of my theoretical ideas that I would love to do. And again, that's the mindset of open source veteran, if you will.
Awesome. Well, all of that sounds good. Like, I think all of that sounds great. Let me fix my own language. Yeah, you're right about the Argo CD thing. I bet you could hook in to the Argo custom resources and get enough information out there. I think that's going to be a fun but challenging thing to do. So I'm excited to see how you hook into that, and again, give people a single pane of glass for all of their Helm dashboards. I think that'll be, yeah, that, like you said, it's going to be a hard problem to solve, but a useful one for people, especially as Argo has got so much interest and adoption across it. And I wonder if that would even help with the Flux Helm resource as well, although I can't remember if Flux uses.
I already got one of the issues from the Flux user, and I see that Flux did something non-standard to the Helm, the way they operated, and there is an issue, and we have, it's actually a really nice discussion. You can go and read it, and you will see that we have some idea how to work around the problem as a quick win, and it's still open question how to solve that, or if it's even solvable on a general level.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join me today, for working on Helm Dashboard, for showing people how to make their lives easier, and for all the future work that you're about to accomplish to make it even better across all of this. Let's face it, cloud native is disparate. We have so many different systems, so many different ways to do things. You're working on a very noble cause, so thank you for that. I would say please reach out to us again when you've got any major updates to Helm Dashboard so that we can show people how to get started. And I encourage anyone watching this episode to go check out the repository, open issues, and get involved. So, Andre, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. And do you have any last words?
It was a pleasure demoing to you. Thank you very much, David, for inviting me. I'm excited to be connected to the community and share all of these applications. Let's hope this is not last of our projects and not last of our initiatives, because I really loved starting these open source projects and letting them accessible to the people, and by that changing and moving forward the ecosystem and the technology world. Cool. Let's all do open source and contribute at least with your feedback.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, everyone watching, remember to say thank you in the comments. We'll see you all next time. Thank you again, Andre. Everyone, have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for watching Rawkode.